Peace and welcome. Today we have more oddly familiar video game artwork. It might be a cover, or it might be in-game graphics. With no further delay, let's get this started. Our first up today comes from Vain Dream 2, the front cover. Now that sure reminds me of Ashram, from Record of Lodoss War. Record of Lodoss War dates all the way back to 1986, with the first OAV released in June of 1990. Vain Dream 2 was released only 2 years later, so it easily could be influenced by Lodoss. If you take a deeper dive into the game, you can see some more possible influence. This character sure looks like Parn, and this one sure looks like Deedlit, all the way down to being an elf with a green and blue outfit. You can also find a few more shots. I think some of the more blatant rip-offs include the dragons and this shot with the castle among the clouds. All in all, this one gets a 7 out of 10 on the oddly scale. It's just a few shots, but the characters kind of help it go higher on the scale. Next up is from a game called Stormmaster. When one of your characters or leaders is successfully assassinated by an enemy spy, this appears. And this one comes from The Death of Marat, a painting that dates back to 1793. An obvious nod, there's no doubt about this one. This one receives a 10 out of 10 on the oddly scale. However, it's not plagiarism because the painting is in the public domain. This means you can freely download, copy, modify, print, or sell reproductions of the painting for commercial or personal projects. And this game over screen is 100% covered. Up next we have Mayhem in Monsterland for the Commodore 64. And that front cover sure looks like Looney Tunes. Not only does that look like the Looney Tunes logo, but Mayhem kind of looks like Supersonic. And Mayhem is blessed with the gift of speed. Again, like Sonic. However, Mayhem is supposed to be a yellow Triceratops. And if you look at some of the stages, if the colors were just a little bit different, it might be a little similar to Sonic. Also, going back to the Warner Brothers reference, if you think the WB logo was just a coincidence, here's the title screen theme from Mayhem in Monsterland. If it was just the logo, I'd give it a pass. But even still, it gets a 7 out of 10 on the WB side of things, but only a 4 of 10 on the Sonic side of things. Our next game is Masters of Time for the Commodore 64. And that is the famous pen and ink drawing, The Vitruvian Man, drawn by Leonardo da Vinci around 1490. The copyrights are a little bit more complicated than usual on this one. Globally, the drawing is completely out of copyright. However, in Italy, they enforce a unique law called the Cultural Heritage Code. Anyone using an image of Italian cultural heritage for commercial purposes must request permission and pay a licensing fee. For example, the museum successfully sued the German toy company Ravensburger in an Italian court. The court ordered the company to stop selling a 1,000-piece Vitruvian Man puzzle. The company Cosmi, the publisher of Masters in Time, did not pay royalties to use the Vitruvian Man on the game's cover because, for one, Italy's strict cultural heritage code didn't exist until 2004. The game was released in 1985. And even if Italy's modern heritage law had existed back then, it only applies to companies operating inside of Italy. On the oddly scale, it receives a 10 out of 10. However, it's not plagiarism. No laws were broken. It's public domain for anyone not selling in Italy. Up next, we have a double whammy. Here's the opening for Police Knots. First released in 1994, with later releases in 95 and 96. And as we established, the Cultural Heritage Code wasn't created until 2004. And Konami is not an Italian company, but they do sell their games all over the world. If they did this today and sold the game on Steam or PSN in Italy, then they would have to pay some royalties. On the Oddly scale, this one receives a 9 out of 10, because at least they changed the human figure to a police astronaut, aka a police knot. Up next comes from the NEC PC-88, Q-Ryu Toe. There's a few references on this one. This one looks like Gordon Liu, and this one looks like the Ghostface Killer. But there's no doubt about this one being Ming the Merciless, from Flash Gordon. There's a few different versions of the character, but we are talking about the 1980 feature film played by Max von Sydow, who you may know from a number of movies and shows. He's everywhere. Ming the Merciless first appeared in 1934 in the first run of the Flash Gordon comic strip in newspapers. This cover receives an 8 out of 10 on the Oddly scale. This specific character receives a 10 out of 10. He's basically the exact same. Next up is the title screen of the arcade game Thunderblade. First released by Sega in 1987, the title screen is a frame from the movie Blue Thunder. If you pause at the right moment, just as the chopper passes in front of this building, you will notice it's basically the exact same. From the buildings to the chopper, the movie Blue Thunder dates back to 1983, 4 years before Thunderblade. On the Oddly scale, it's hard to not put this one as a 10 out of 10, considering not only is the name of the two similar, but this is just a digitized screenshot. Up next, we have another one from Thunderblade. Same game, different inspiration. This similarity comes from a Thunderblade poster and the 007 movie For Your Eyes Only. This between-the-legs shot with the high heels and explosions instantly makes me think of 007. For Your Eyes Only was released back in 1981, while, as we stated earlier, Thunderblade dates to 1987. On our Oddly scale, this one is an 8 out of 10. It's possibly inspired, but by no means plagiarism. Next up is from the Commodore 64. Here's the cover for Rapid Fire. Now that could be John Rambo. Just change Rambo's bandana and shirt to green. If you still don't see it, then how about this shot? And then, let's mirror it to make it the same direction, and there you have a 10 out of 10 on the Oddly scale. However, I don't really think it's plagiarism because it doesn't really look like Stallone, and you can't really copyright just a pose. They did add a shirt, plus the image was mirrored. However, on the flip side, they did copy all sorts of details, even down to the necklace. Our last one today was submitted by Anime Phoenix, and it comes from Mechanized Attack. I'm sure most people can already see where this one is headed. That sure looks like Arnie in the Terminator. First released in arcades in 1989, and then a year later on the NES. The NES version made a lot of changes, like removing Arnie from the cover. During the game, you run into some oddly familiar looking enemies, including this T-100 look-alike. The NES changed them so you just get a quick death animation where they reveal they weren't human all along, but it's just a few frames, unlike the arcade version. On the Oddly scale, this one receives a 7 out of 10. That one character looks like Arnie, however they did kind of alter the sunglasses. And the one enemy looks almost exactly like a T-100, but at least they altered it in the NES version. We do have many more oddly familiar artwork entries, but we can always use some more. If you know any, please let us know. We will be doing a giveaway in one of the next few videos. We have a few extra Uncanny X mouse pads, so make sure to tune in next time and we will announce how you can win one. Until next time, shout out to Golden Tier patrons: Bearsona, Quantum X, MJJ, Shadow Juste, and FancyJ. I'm ICC. Thanks for watching. Peace.